Hi guys, as a content warning, I'm going to be talking about a car crash and police presence in this digital story. So a few weeks ago at 7 a.m., I was with my roommate driving on I-80, and I spun out on ice, crashed into the guardrail, and totaled my car. Not ideal, but luckily my roomie and I weren't seriously injured. Right after the crash, we were still Googling, what do you do if you just crashed your car? A police officer showed up, and as soon as I saw the cop car, I thought, oh no, because I looked disheveled and I was still covered in party sweat and glitter from 90s hairs the night before, so I fully expected to be breathalyzed, /questioned about texting, /ticketed, or something. Anyways, I started digging through my glove compartment to find my license and registration, and when the police officer walked up to get them from me, I opened my car door because the windows were no longer functional due to the crash, and he took the license and registration, but mostly he was like, does your car drive? And I was like, no, it doesn't even turn on. And he said, grab your stuff and get in the passenger side of my car. So we grabbed all of our things, which included a bag of paper plates, 4 aluminum serving trays, a giant roll of paper, and the aux cord. And we got into the cop car, me in the front, my roomie in the back. The officer drove us to the nearest town, and he asked us which hotel we wanted to be dropped off at. And at the hotel, we sat in the lobby for hours while I talked to my insurance. And then we did some other stuff and found a way home and had to cancel the event we were driving to shop for, but that's not super relevant. Okay, so now that you're briefed on one of my worst Sundays ever, I'm going to go back and talk about how this whole situation worked through race and disability and how me and my roommates and the police officers' identities as able and white impacted this narrative. Because honestly, without the lens of race and ability, and also gender, but I'll save that for another time, there's a lot of things in this story that just don't make any sense. The first thing that wouldn't make any sense is that I wasn't breathalyzed or literally questioned at all about how I crashed. My first thoughts when the police showed up were that I didn't look very respectable and that I would be judged based off my individual appearance, an assumption which is a privilege of the unmarked qualities of whiteness and ability. And I did end up being respected as an individual human, except when my actions weren't respectable, in which case my whiteness and ability swooped in and I was still treated with respect. This ties into it mirrors the idea from Adam and Novelli's piece Shadow Play that, and I'm quoting, respectability does not reside within individual bodies, but within powerful institutions. The second, initially confusing thing about this story is how calm and helpful the police officer was the whole time. When the officer approached my car, I did 2 things that I've actually been explicitly taught not to do. I dug through my glove compartment and I opened my car door instead of my window. I also chose to bring a huge roll of paper into the car, which we didn't cover in driver's ed, but in retrospect, it could have been perceived as a dangerous item. And yet, at no point did the officer seem suspicious of our intentions. In fact, he went above and beyond for us. I was told to sit in the front seat of the car, and he actually gave us a choice about where we wanted to go. Well, I've heard since then that it's not even typical for the police to drive you anywhere. There had to be something going on that made the officer feel so safe and inclined to help me, and I think it hinges on 2 key assumptions. That I was A, not a risk, and B, worth helping. The assumption that I'm not at risk works through so many of my identities. Smallish white women, which is what I am, are usually perceived as the least threatening group of people. Also, being a non-threatening presence is tied to a very specific level of ability. You have to be viewed as less physically able than the other person, small and woman in my case, but also cognitively able enough so that you're not placed in a category of mental illness stigmatized as dangerous. The assumption that I was worth helping was, at least I think partially due to the fact that we were very likable car crashers, which is also tied to our whiteness and ability in some interesting ways. This manifested itself mostly in our drive to the hotel, during which I think I was in shock, but also making great small talk and a lot of really funny jokes. The interesting part is that I can be friendly and likable to this white and cognitively able police officer because what it means to be likable in our society has been shaped around his and my shared brain chemistry and our shared cultural upbringing. Also, the police officer and I share a race. If he has a daughter or a wife, I look at least a little bit like her, which makes me think he has some level of transferred affection for me, which I guess is kind of a weird claim. But as further evidence, this is not the first time an older white stranger has been somewhat protective of me, despite us sharing little but race and ability. The last confusing thing I'll talk about is the fact that a hotel let us hang out in their lobby without paying anything with our many things and my coffee-soaked shoes for so long. I think this was for 2 reasons. First, because we don't look threatening, which I've already argued is about our race and ability. And second, because we belong in the physical space of a hotel lobby because the lobby was built with people like us in mind. We require no accommodations from the desk clerk, such as a different place to sit, water, food, a less stimulating environment, all of which would have required additional work from the clerk. Since we're not perceived as dangerous or more work, it's easier to just let us exist in the space. So I guess, in conclusion, this story doesn't work. It doesn't make logical sense without thinking about it through race and ability. And also, now you all know why Bagel Brunch was canceled last month.